Welcome back to Real Talk with Susan and Kristina. And in case my listeners out there missed CSI last night, we're going to bring real life CSI to you all through our special guest, Greg Kelley from Vestige. And Greg is going to talk about computer evidence and how it relates to cases. Kristina, why don't you introduce our colleague, Greg?
Sure. So, Greg, thank you so much for joining us. Greg is a founder of Vestige Digital Investigations, and Greg's been working in the digital forensics field since 2000 or so. And really, for the past 15 years, he's helped Vestige become one of the leaders in the area of comprehensive digital forensic investigations. Greg and other employees at Vestige work on criminal cases and civil cases, and really cases in courts that deal with a variety of issues from cyber intrusion, intellectual property theft, fraud, other sorts of illegal online activities. Greg testifies in court, both in the state of Ohio as well as federal courts. And we are pleased you're here today, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And, with your comment on CSI as a side note, my business partner actually consulted for a while on I think it was the CSI Cyber series that was on. It's kind of funny you brought that up. Yeah. He hooked up with a couple of directors. I forgot how it was, but yeah, he's got a couple of posters and t-shirts in his office. He's pretty proud of that. So
very cool.
That's really cool. And the reason, Greg, we wanted you to talk to families, because as you know, Kristina and I are dedicated to representing students, is that almost every case, if not every case, has a component of what is or is not on a cell phone or a laptop or some device. And what do we need to find from the other side for a defense? What do we need to provide? What do we not want to give? What's here? What's there? What's erased? What's deleted? And it's confusing. And every day, Kristina and I are learning about a new software, a new chat room, a new social media app. And it's hard to keep up with it. And so we're hoping you can boil down these fancy, scary words like forensics and computer and cybercrime and make it meaningful.
Yeah, we'll give that a try. So let's talk about forensics. The way I like to describe forensics to someone in general is we're looking at a computer, a cell phone, let's call them a digital device, something that has digital information on it. And we're examining it, we're looking at it, we're pulling messages from it and pictures and web history. We're doing all of that in such a way that's going to be admissible in court. So that means that we can take the same device, perform the same type of search and analysis multiple times, and we get the same results over and over. And likewise, too, we can explain it to someone else who's technical like us, and they can repeat the same processes and get the same results as well at the end of the day. Now, their opinion on what they found versus what we found may differ, and that's an opinion. But at least at the end of the day, they can find the same messages, the same artifacts is another word that I'm sure I tell you guys a lot about. They can find the same artifacts as well. And an artifact, so as not to get too technical here, is really something that's left over after an action is performed. So really simply, your web history. Everybody knows about web history on your computer. You go to websites, you look at pictures, you read articles and so on. And everybody knows that web history is stored on your computer. Well, that history is an artifact. It's something that's left behind after you performed an action. Your action was you went to a website, you read an article. Well, part of that website was cached on your computer. That history was cached, and that's the artifact. So that's what we're doing. We're examining devices and helping people understand what happened.
So that's why everyone out there, my computer knows that I like to shop. Is that right?
That would be why. Google knows you like to shop. Apple knows you like to shop. If you're on Facebook, knows you like to shop. Everybody knows you like to shop. So
and really everybody knows.
Let me ask you actually on that, and that's a good segue. Susan loves to shop, and she's getting blasted with these ads in her Facebook feed, and she goes on Google, and there are ads on banner ads and whatnot. Tell us, what's What type of information can be uncovered? What sorts of artifacts, I guess, to use the phrase you referenced, or the term, excuse me, can you learn through doing a computer or, I guess, digital forensic exam?
Great question.
Yeah. So what can you learn? You're going to learn about someone's habits. You're going to learn about someone's habits, their likes, their dislikes. You look at my computer, you're going to find articles about football, Chicago Bears, and beer. And it's going to be as simple as that. So you're going to understand someone's habits, what they did, when they did it, even where they did it from. I give you, for instance, is we're working on a case right now involving a family dispute over a business. And come to find out, we were able to discover that our client was really worried that the other side had information that they shouldn't have known about. Well, the way they had it, we found evidence, was the other side actually was logging into our client's Gmail account and performing searches in his mailbox. And the way we found that out was because we were able to grab our client's Gmail or Google history and see that someone got into his mailbox from a location that he wasn't in. Our client was in a completely different state. And here we find out that someone from Ohio is actually getting into his mailbox and doing all sorts of things. So going back to your question, what can you find out? You're finding out information, not just about someone's shopping habits or about their likes and dislikes, but what they're doing when. Searches that they're conducting online, to give an extreme, how to hide a body, something like that. But you see things like that, and it's when that took place, and it's also too from where that took place as well too. The reason why you may find that you get a lot of advertisements like on your computer for something you did on your cell phone is because we signed into these devices with the same credentials. I'm an Android user. So on my cell phone, I've got my Gmail, my Google account is signed in there. And I sign into my Google account on my computer. And so the history gets intermixed, the activity gets intermixed. And so that's beneficial to someone like me doing an investigation. And it also can be sometimes too a little difficult because you have to weed out who's doing what, when, and where. Where were they? Because things you could do that are appropriate maybe at home may not be appropriate at work. So you got to kind of weed that out as well too.
Greg, can you ever use evidence that you take from a cell phone to prove that something didn't happen?
Yeah, you can. What you're talking about there is the phrase proving a negative. And so in order to prove that something didn't happen, you got to look anywhere and everywhere for where that occurrence may have taken place and rule it out. But, you certainly can. And we've been asked to do that at times. And the way we go about doing it is basically saying, we looked here, we looked there, we looked at all these different places, and we didn't see the evidence of it. We didn't see messages. What's oftentimes what someone's asking us is, can you prove that this message was never sent? You get a screenshot of someone else saying, I got this message, and John sent Betty this message. And Betty says this message came through, and John says, no, it never did. And what you'd like to be able to do is look at John's phone where the message would have come from and see that not only do we not find that message to Betty, but we find all sorts of other messages and other activity around that time that shows the phone was being used, and we have this rich amount of information, but yet we're not finding that message. Quite often it's not that case, but yeah, you could still go about using digital devices to say something didn't happen. It's just, it's a more difficult process because you have to check off all the boxes and make sure you're not seeing it from all these different locations.
So I have another question. I mean, we know that virtually every teenager in America has an iPhone, an Android, some sort of smartphone, and there are a constantly evolving array of social media apps and platforms available. So for particularly cases involving students in social media, what type of forensic analysis can be done on social media accounts?
Yeah. So with social media accounts, it's all a matter of whose account we're trying to get at and what kind of access do we have. The best type of access is that we actually get that individual's credentials. And then we can go into their social media account and see all the things that they're posting, all the things they're sharing, private messages sent and received, and so on. And again, we may have other information around that, such as where was that person when they made that post? where was that person when they sent that message? And then of course the when, the when is always important too. Absent of that, for instance, like on Facebook, if we're investigating someone's Facebook account, maybe we don't have that person's actual credentials, but someone that's a friend of theirs on Facebook is allowing us to use their credentials to look at the suspect's account. So we can gather some information that way as well too. And what we're looking for all depends on the nature of the case. If it's like a matter where someone's claiming they slipped and fell and they're debilitated, and we go on their Facebook page and see that they're skiing out in Colorado, it kind of contradicts the idea that someone slipped and fell. With school matters, it's going to be things such as, who was where and when, and who knows whom. Do we have pictures on someone's Instagram or someone's Facebook wall that shows them being a friend or an acquaintance of another important person in a case? So that might be important to someone such as you when you're working on these student matters. Who knew whom and when and where were they on certain evenings?
So, Greg, I'm going to get a little juicy here from our cases. We have a lot of cases where we defend students who receive naked Snapchat messages, and they either receive or send nude pictures, which is a crime. But these students tell us time and time again, they sent it via Snapchat and they thought it disappeared. And of course, we know that other students capture the Snapchat and send it around. But let's say that didn't happen. Is it true that snaps really disappear forever, or can you uncover something about that nude photo?
So obviously, to start with, when you're taking the photo in Snapchat, quite often a copy of the photo may be saved on the phone itself before being attached to a Snapchat and sending it along. It all depends on the method by which that photo was taken and sent. But if you're just talking about the snap being sent between two people, that information, if neither party saves it, decides to save it as a snap, it's going to be gone. It's most likely, it's going to be gone. And I say most likely because, we've seen in the past where Snapchat changes their software code and things may linger around a little bit longer than anybody intended. At the very beginning, Snapchat said, yes, all the pictures and all the snaps are gone. And come to find out that couldn't be any more wrong. Things were left behind and we were able to do it. And they cleaned up their act since that time. But there's always the possibility that something's left behind and so on. But in general, no. I mean, if two people if one person sends a snap to the other and neither saves it, neither takes a screenshot of it, it's going to be gone. As with that time, once that time is done, that Snapchat goes away.
But you can never be sure that it's not going to be.
Yeah, you can't be 100% sure. Right. You can't be 100% sure. What we will often find, though, is still maybe not the picture itself, but evidence and proof that a snap took place between two people at a specific time. We don't have the content of it. We don't have the picture, but sometimes that may be evidentiary enough for an attorney to get the results they're looking for.
The artifact.
Yeah, correct. The artifact. Yep. It's the artifact that's left behind. We don't have the picture, but we have other things.
Let's just talk about computers in general. And I guess that would still include smartphones because smartphones are, in a sense, mini computers. But let's just say something is deleted, an email, a Word document, a PDF, whatever, you name it. If something on an electronic device is deleted, is it gone forever? Can a forensic exam recover it?
Yeah, it most likely there's going to be the ability to recover that document. But I will, as I often tell all of my clients, is the honest answer, the full answer. It depends. It depends on the situation. For instance, let's take your example of an email. If I am just using my Chrome browser or Mozilla or Internet Explorer to view my emails and I delete an email, chances are that email is not going to be recoverable. We might get a snippet of it, a piece of it, but that email is not going to be gone. If I'm using something like Outlook or Thunderbird or Mac Mail, and I delete a message, I delete an email, then it can be recovered. So there's two scenarios there where we're talking about recovering the same item, and it comes back to it depends.
Let me ask you this. Sorry to interrupt, but I just had a thought.
Yeah.
Someone deletes something and then uses software to try to cover up what they did.
Yeah. If it's done properly, it's going to be gone. If it's done properly, I will say, we just did one where an individual deleted everything from a USB drive, but it ended up in their recycle bin. They did dump the recycle bin, but they used a piece of software to try and erase everything, and it completely neglected the recycle bin. So everything they tried deleting and covering up was sitting there in the recycle bin. If used properly, those tools definitely work. They will work 100% of the time. You're really not going to know what was deleted, absent of a situation that you're not expecting. Let's go back, though, to your comment about deleting and can you recover things, and back to my point about it depends, because we get this a lot. Someone comes to us, especially in situations like yours, someone comes to us and says, I have this picture. It was on my phone, and for some reason, whatever, they deleted the picture. You're not going to recover deleted pictures from a cell phone, especially an iPhone. With the technology involved, and I can get real techie here, but I'll avoid it. You're not going to get that picture back.
It's
so
not
if someone
even
has
in the cloud.
Well, okay, so now it depends. Did they synchronize it with the cloud? If they synchronize it with the cloud, sure, but not everybody does that on their iPhone. A lot of the iPhones we deal with, they might use the cloud, they might use their iCloud account for some things, but not always. So if it's not synchronized with the cloud, and don't just assume that because I have an iPhone, and even if I've signed into my iCloud account, you still have to make sure you enable synchronizing of pictures or synchronizing of documents or your calendar, your contacts, and so on, which 9 times out of 10, when someone comes to us, that's not the case. They just had a picture on the phone, they deleted the picture, and it's not going to be recoverable on a phone.
Greg, we tell our clients, be careful. Don't delete, because there could still be evidence that you deleted, and that could get you in trouble.
Well, yeah, most certainly, because if that picture was tagged to a message of some sort, the picture could still rely on the message. If they delete the message, we can recover the message, not the picture, but we'll have a name of the picture and show that a picture was sent with this type of message between these people at a certain point in time. It's a tough thing, because when someone is in a position that they're in before they come to an attorney such as the two of you, they freak out and they just start deleting things left and right. I know your viewpoint is usually the more evidence, the better, because you know what you're up against and to probably defend your client, but also too, there's going to be some evidence there that's going to help them. There's going to be something there that's going to help them. So to the parents out there listening, if their child gets in a situation and they get into trouble, the best thing you can do is probably just grab all their digital devices, physically get them in your hands and get them away from the child. Don't let the child be tempted. And I say child, it's usually a teenager, but don't let that person be tempted to start deleting things, and get advice from an attorney and decide the best way going forward. Hopefully you've seized those devices quick enough before they can start deleting things. So, because otherwise it's tough, because there's always 3 sides to the story. There's person A and person B, and then there's the truth. And the problem is that each person's only going to keep what they want. And when you're trying to defend someone, there's probably not going to be that evidence left around if they've deleted it. So
Did you hear that, parents out there? If your kids get in trouble, take their devices. I assure you, they're not going to die just because they have to go sometime without a smartphone.
exactly.
There was society pre-smartphone.
Exactly. And if they need their smartphone for work or communication, you take the SIM card out of the phone, which has the evidence, and you put that SIM card into some other phone you've got laying around, or go to the Apple store and get another phone or something like that. You can transfer their phone number with just swapping that SIM card. But yeah, take their device away. Sometimes I'd like to take the devices away until someone reaches the age of 21 or 25, but that's a whole other conversation.
Greg, what advice do you have for parents who want to monitor their children's devices or online activity for whatever reason? I mean, are there any tips or suggestions you have for that?
Yeah, certainly. One of the things we do in our household, my kids both have a couple of old Android phones, and my wife has them on a Google Family Plan with her. So she knows any apps that they install. She can also see their usage on the phones and so on. So she's able to monitor that. Now my kids are, 10 and 13, so it's a little on the younger side. In the iPhone world, Apple also has like family Apple IDs. But the other thing that I've seen people do as well is you can take the same Apple ID that you have on your phone and sign that into your kid's phone. And then you see everything that they're doing. You see all the purchases they're doing and so on. If your child wants to do something like Instagram or TikTok or something like that, request that you become their friend or their follower, and they let you see everything that you may post. You're not going to look at it, but you have that ability. You can see it. You see what they're doing. There's applications like Net Nanny that you can install on a device, and you can watch what the person's doing, see who they're texting, things like that. That's another way. I know some homes now, some people are familiar with what are called wireless mesh networks, where basically everybody's home's wireless, and if you're just relying on your one cable box, that's not going to be good enough. So instead, you set up like what's called a mesh network. And there's a lot of them out there. We use Amplify, and I know there's Orbi and Google Nest and so on. Those systems often have the ability to record web traffic, the web traffic that's going through that network. They don't keep it for a long period of time. So if you have one of those devices and you want to use it for that purpose, you should really look into how much of that traffic is being captured and how long it stays around. Don't assume that everything is captured and everything's out there and everything's done, all the time. And it's always recoverable, because that's not always the case. Except, with the Google world, again, if you have, that's the other thing you can do as well is on computers or even on phones, sign in with a known Google account onto your child's devices. And then when you want, you can just do what's called a Google takeout and get all of their web activity that way. So
that sounds like parent espionage. And on that note, we did promise our listeners that we would bring CSI to their home. So parents, if you want to know more about this, we will have both on our website this podcast posted. And I think Greg will send a copy to you to do this at Post as well as Vestige.
Yep.
And again, thanks for bringing CSI live to Real Talk with Susan and Kristina. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.